Welcome. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Sam. I'm the program director for public programs here at the Exploratorium, and along with a mighty team, part of the effort that puts together these Thursday nights, week in and week out here at After Dark. This presentation is quite exciting. Our presenter tonight, John Maeda, is part of our Osher Fellowship here at the Exploratorium. It's an incredible program that has decades of history, bringing incredible minds and people to interact with our staff and our public, supported by the Bernard Osher Foundation. I'll give a very brief introduction. John said I should say less, but here's what I'll say about John. He's an American technologist and product experience leader. He's an early catalyst for generative art and computational design for commercial applications, and the first recipient of the White House's National Design Award for algorithmically generated visualizations informed by data and AI. He currently serves as Vice President of Design and Artificial Intelligence at Microsoft. He's written 5 books, including How to Speak Machine and Laws of Simplicity. I'm absolutely excited for this program. I hope you are too. Please offer a warm welcome to John Maeda.
Ooh, all right. I'm going to use my timer because everyone should be on time. Let's make sure that I end. Okay, 50 minutes. All right. Okay, well, I want to thank you all for, it's like nice today, so it's dark in here. But this is a very special place. I think that the opportunity afforded to me by Isabel and Melissa, by Anne and the director, has been a extraordinary, at least 48 hours for me, because this is a very special place. It's a special place that I never really knew about until I got older. I wasn't a California kid who came here to learn things. But I've been hanging out with the explainers who have been teaching me how to explain. And I've been so moved by their backgrounds. It's sort of like, to me, it's like a sort of a Peace Corps type of situation here, where there are like true believers in the power of science, art, and human perception. And I get a little emotional thinking about how vital that is. And then, I was East Coast based for most of my life, and I thought Brooklyn was the soulful spot, but I forgot that San Francisco had it first, basically. So just want to sort of acknowledge that. I'm a West Coaster originally. This group of people of all ages, really, young and younger and older, have made me kind of in this time I'm here, just remember, I think what is probably important and why you choose to spend time in these hallowed halls, which to anyone might appear like a strange, shabby chic, cult-like place. And in many senses, it befits the kind of legacy. If you have ever learned about the story of Frank Oppenheimer, a book that I was sent maybe 8 years ago. I thought it was very moving. And I'm a very messy desktop person. But I want to note that I'm going to be hanging out with Julie Yu later. Dr. Yu has tons of research out there. I made the mistake of going onto YouTube to find some videos with her. Wow, they're riveting. But that is not the good stuff. Go over here to learn more about her work. But this place is special to me because there's a picture, there's a photograph somewhere of a milk drop splat. And it looks something like this, and actually you can tell that MIT doesn't care too much about this because the website's from 1990 something. And even this movie, those of you who are in video know that a .mov no longer. But I did a .mob conversion just half an hour ago to watch this little film, which I could just imagine was like wild, right? Like, what? That's a milk drop splash, This is important to me because I was able to achieve the American dream of many Asian parents to go to a elite college. I don't know if you know about this, but it's a big thing. So my parents had no education, and we had a tofu factory in Chinatown in Seattle, and they heard about these schools called Harvard and MIT, and instilled in all of us, me and my siblings, that one of us had to go there, with no notion of where they were on Earth. And then when I discovered that MIT, the M stood for Massachusetts, that was also kind of mind-boggling, because Washington as a kid is pretty far from Massachusetts. But anyways, I remember getting to MIT by some miracle, actually because of a science teacher who took interest in me, because I didn't come from a book-based family. I came from a work-based family, meaning you had to work all the time. And I remember arriving at MIT and being very disoriented, because those of you who are first generation to go to college, out there, I mean, it's a difficult experience if you're lacking the grounding of that moment. And I felt I shouldn't be there, and I was doing really bad, because there were all these kids from this weird school, Bronx Science or whatever. I was like, what is that school? They're like super people. And I was introduced to this strobe alley place. It's on the 4th floor of what's called the Infinite Corridor at MIT. And I didn't know that thing was a milk drop, but I thought it looked cool. Whoa, what is that? And then there was this machine that dropped water, and then the strobe would flash at it, and you're like seeing like the drop of water. And I used to go there like all the time in the middle of the night to just kind of play with it. And it was a grounding experience for me, as someone who really had no idea that you could have a whole place like this to learn through physical experience, something that I didn't realize because of my dyslexia, autism, all this whatever stuff, that I had a problem learning. But if I had the right way to learn, wow, it could be so much better. And so that was how I found that. Now, I want to note that I was hanging out yesterday staring at drops of water, kind of an ode to Doc Edgerton. I took individual pictures on my iPhone, 200 to be exact, because I was very curious about a millisecond. In AI today, we talk about latency a lot, and I wanted to feel a millisecond. So I was hanging out in the millisecond realm, and it felt really good, because I was like right there between milliseconds. I felt like the Flash or something, it's like, whoa. And I had that realization that, it took me decades to understand or to internalize those milk drop photographs. So just want to thank Exploratorium for that opportunity, which is small for some of you, but perhaps big for me, because I was able to kind of fully understand decades later, this is not just cool, but I now can feel milliseconds. They're much more tactile for me than they were before I set foot here. And I think that those experiences are kind of all over the place. So those of you who don't come here often, if you spend more than 1 hour, it's going to start to stick to you in a nice way, like it stuck to me. Now, I have experience at the intersection of art and design. I was at MIT for my early career. I was tenured, which I say means you don't have to work anymore. But that was troubling for me. I thought I was going to get lazy. I like that phrase by Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's. I'd rather be green and growing instead of ripe and ready to rot. Like a red tomato. Who wants to be a red tomato? The end is near. So green, I like that idea. So I became president of Rhode Island School of Design, And there I found this place called the Edna Lawrence Nature Lab. And I would hang out there. I loved going there. It was like a Green Lantern to the lantern for me. I would just hang out there because the rationale of having a nature lab, basically a bunch of cadavers of animals, sort of, like always available. You can actually take a rooster home to your dorm room because you have to sort of work from first principle at RISD, and I love that. But I remember one night, because I used to like walk around campus a lot. Maybe I was the creepy president, but I would walk around, and around 10 p.m. I'd go in there and like hang out and talk to the proctor at the front desk. And one night I asked her like, "So, like, what's the most popular thing here?" Because there's a whole cabinet of butterflies. My mom loves butterflies, so I thought must be butterflies. And like, she says, "No, the gourds." I said, "The gourd? The gourds are hot." Like, it's a gourd. It's like so boring looking, right? And I'm like, I don't know then. But I began to appreciate the gourd after a while. But then she said, actually, people do love the butterfly's feathers. And then I thought, was there some kind of chemical thing occurring in her? Feathers? I had an awkward moment. Maybe I should leave now. But then she said, no, let me show you. And we had these super high def microscopes. And she put the butterfly under the microscope. And there you see the flakes, the feathers. And so it was an example of me how creativity in the arts manifests as a lack of sense of absolute scale, but relative scale. An artist can place two planes in the same place at the same time, and that's why they may seem a bit confusing at times. Same with some scientists as well. So I think that kind of creative sensing, human perception capability, I think is why maybe you choose to spend time here, because it's a gift and a kind of curse, but mostly it's a gift, I think. I've been cooking recently. I have a cooking show on YouTube. I have a LinkedIn learning show on AI engineering essentials. It's basically change management for engineering leaders because this stuff is confusing to executives and also people in general. So I made this course to be a bit calming. And this month, I have another course coming out called Risk Management with AI, where I'm using clay and paper. It's sort of a cozy AI craft corner. So I'm not sure how this is all going to do, but again, this is a side hobby for mine. And we'll have the cozy AI kitchen here. Now, I want to note that my mother is someone who did not like AI because her iMessages auto-type was bothering her. So she demanded that I turn it off. But very recently, she reversed her decree. Let me have my mother appear here for a second. There we go. It was spelling the wrong words. I thought you didn't like it.
Sometimes they put in
sound?
words for me. They put words.
1 second. There we go. It was spelling the wrong words. I thought you didn't like it.
Sometimes they put in words for me. They put words in my mouth. That's why I didn't like it. But then I find that putting all those words together, that's too much.
So
Too much.
you changed your mind.
Yeah, so I changed my mind. I like AI.
So my mom likes AI now, so that's the update. And in the spirit of AI and cooking, I wanted to segue to the cooking side of the house. And I want to invite the explainer that has volunteered to be a part of this experience. That is Ali Lipsky. Come on up, Ali. Woohoo.
Hi.
Oh, live subject. Okay. All right, Ali. So what I have here is I have cooked a meal beforehand to see if it worked. Sometimes it's like sometimes it explodes. But I wrote some C# code using semantic kernel, an open source orchestrator. I brought over some packages. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get the keys, because you need the keys to sort of turn on the API. And I've taken this cow's eye. So who's done the cow's eye dissection activity before? Ooh, oh, veterans here. Okay. For the people who are new to it, you're in for a treat. And it's funny how cow's eye is AI.
AI. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, what is that? It's AI. There we go. And the cow's eye. So basically, there's an 8-page PDF available on the learning site. I brought it down. I downloaded it. I pulled out the JPEGs, and I took out 2 here. Ooh, exciting. And then what I've done is I'm now using the GPT-4 vision, which some of you know is what's called a multimodal model. And a multimodal model just means it can handle, it's like sea, it's like sea and land, it's like amphibious. It can do image tasks and it can do language tasks. I brought that over and I asked it to understand that image. And it says, thanks for that image. I can see all this stuff here. Got it. Okay, so it's an example of like, people ask, how does it do that? It's multimodal. It's cooperative. So for instance, some of you know image recognition, right? I found some eyes. I found a face. I found a car. I found a license plate. There's a limit to that approach. So instead, what these models do is what I call they play a game of go fish. Like, I see a cup. Maybe there's another cup. Is there another cup? Oh, there's another cup. Oh, great, 2 cups. Is there a table? Because you figure 2 cups are on a table. There's a table. Is there a door? Is it indoors or is it outdoors? And so language is how the scene is being reconstructed with the image. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is my code gets messy really fast, so I kind of like trying to make it a little cleaner, repeatable. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to, for instance, a common thing we like to do with prompts, when we humans write prompts, good, but the AI is better at making prompts for itself. So I asked it to make some image prompts for how to recreate those images. And so understanding images, interpret them, producing instructions for synthesis. Okay, so now I was okay, that was the first page. The second page, I'm going to ingest that second page. I'm asking, for this image, what are the key details? So it doesn't get it to think, kind of like think, Okay, and it's so it's interpreted the image. And then I'm asking it, for the first image on this page, generate a prompt that I can give to a DALL-E style model. So this is the model, create an image of a person's hand, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm going to bring in an image synthesis model to take that prompt and make an image. And if you notice, it's not a lot of computer code. It's very strange. It's like this little bit of code is doing all that capabilities. It's highly leveraged. And made an image. Okay, now notice how, though, I cheated. Because this is where the prompt was supposed to go into, but I manually inserted, create an image of a person's hand holding a cow's eye. Why did I do that? Well, first off, when you see the image, you'll be disappointed. Okay, it's funny. But I had to do that because the guardrail, AI guardrail, stepped in and said, I can't generate a dissection. Because that is something that could be perceived as something terrible in some ways. And people say, well, how do I work around it? That should be changed. Well, the whole point is that a lot of these systems are being made with guardrails intentionally. And that's a category called responsible AI. Now, I can't do this stuff. I can't do the cow's eye. I was going to make the thing make cow's eye. And
what are we going to do now? Where's our cow's eye?
I don't know. I'm kind of in a little.
That's okay. We came prepared. Thank you.
Woohoo!
All right. So we have some cow's eyes prepared as we do in the kitchen. I have one fully intact here. That's
one
how we
second.
normally start out.
Oh,
Oh yeah, we
do you
could
have camera? Yeah.
get the camera going too.
Oh, whoa.
Oh.
Ooh, monochrome.
But so initially, to prompt John, we wanted to see if there was a way to de-jargonize our cow eye training, because we really value inclusivity and accessibility at the Exploratorium. So our cow eye, while it's the most popular demo, also has a bunch of jargon and a bunch of words that maybe like third graders don't really understand, and they're not going to take that home with them. So I want to tell them more what is the thing that we're looking at and what does it do, not necessarily what is it called, because I don't care so much about that. So that's what I hope that the AI can help us do. But so here we have our fully intact cow's eye. It has all of the muscle and fat around it still. And then I have some other eyes that we've also already cut off, all of that stuff. But in the spirit of the Exploratorium, I want it to be somewhat interactive for you guys. So I'm going to put this eye in a bag and pass it around. Yeah, if you don't want to touch the eye, that's okay, because you're not touching the eye. You're touching a plastic bag. But make sure you keep it closed. I'm going to be wearing gloves doing the dissection. So yeah, feel free to share this. Are anyone interested in touching the eye? Okay, perfect. Okay, excellent. Okay, and then we prepared some more eyes too. Okay, let's take a look here. So that's the cow eye with all the fat and muscle cut off. So, and then what have you built for us too?
Well, after experiencing the eyeball up close, what I wanted to imagine is I made an inquisitive sixth grader.
Perfect.
Yeah. And the sixth grader, let's see how they're going to do here. Let me see. I have the sound routed to my speakers, so I'll get close to get my face here. Let's see if I can get it to talk.
What parts of the cow eye will we be looking at during the dissection?
I'll type in the response.
Okay.
What part of the cow are you going to be looking at?
We'll be looking at lots of parts of the cow eye, primarily the cornea, the lens, the iris, the retina, and the optic nerve. Those are the main parts I like to point out.
Wow, that's a lot of parts. What's the cornea and what does it do?
That's what I want to know. So the cornea, this part here, it's all blurry now and cloudy, but that's just because the cow's dead and there's nothing providing nutrients to it anymore. So the cornea started to become cloudy. Normally it's clear and see-through, so all the light can pass through.
Okay.
And so the cornea does the bulk of the focusing of light.
Yes, that's correct. The cornea is usually clear to help light enter the eye.
Wow, really getting involved here, kind of pretending it's like you were saying, like it wants us to get in there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think normally during my dissection, I like to ask the viewers the questions that I want them to be wondering about while I do the dissection. So we thought it'd be interesting to treat the AI like a visitor. And so maybe if we ask, what do you expect to see inside of the eye?
I think we might see different parts like maybe the lens, the iris, and the retina.
Maybe, yeah. Probably. So what colors do you think we will see inside of the eye?
I think we might see different shades of red, pink, and white inside the eye.
So that's a good response in terms of what I would expect to hear from a sixth grader. They make lots of different guesses. A lot of people think red because they think there might be blood inside. And so yeah, after we kind of talk about the outside of the eye, then I like to start cutting it open. So we're going to cut around the sclera, the white part of the eye. And fun fact, that part does not have any nerve endings, so this should not hurt a bit. Okay, here I go. And the sclera on the cow and the cornea are very thick, so this
Do you
just
know
takes
what
a
the
few
sclera
swipes.
is for in the cow eye?
Oh. So the sclera, I actually am wondering myself what are the differences between the sclera and your skin. I know your skin has nerve endings. The sclera does not. But I think of the sclera as the skin of your eye. That's just how it appears to me. But so I'm cutting it now, and you might see some liquid pouring out. Does anyone know what this brown liquid is? Or maybe our AI
Yes,
might know.
the sclera is like the outer covering of the eye, similar to skin, but it's tough and doesn't have nerve endings like skin
This
does.
is a sixth grader.
Wow, very intelligent sixth grader. Okay, can we ask,
Yeah.
what is the brown fluid inside of the eye?
That brown fluid is called vitreous humor, which helps maintain the shape of the eye.
I don't know about that. So I'm gonna flip the eye open. On the front of the eye, we have the cornea there, as we talked about earlier. And then when I flip it over, we have the iris. And that is where all of that brown liquid is coming from. It's coming from the iris right there. So the brown liquid is actually melanin.
The brown liquid you're seeing is actually called vitreous humor, and it helps maintain.
Yeah.
Just, it's like, yeah.
It's a sixth grader. We forgive it. But so that's actually the iris, and all that brown liquid is melanin that helps protect our skin and our hair and our eyes from the sun. And so cows don't wear sunglasses, so they had to evolve to have their sunglasses be built into their eyes. So that's why they have so much melanin. Their eyes are almost this really dark brown color. And can we ask, what is the iris for?
The iris is the colored part of the eye, and it controls how much light enters the eye by adjusting the size of the pupil.
Yeah. Can we ask, what is the pupil?
The pupil is the black circle in the middle of the eye. It looks like a hole, but it's actually an opening that lets light in.
Okay. I think it's still a hole. So I kind of ask a trick
Good
question.
observation. The pupil is indeed like a hole in the iris, controlling the amount of light that enters the eye.
Yeah. So yeah, I like to ask people like, oh, can you point to the tray? Where do you think the pupil is? Where is it? And it's a trick question because we can't like pick up and hold the pupil. It's just this hole right there in the middle of the iris.
Oh.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So just want to say that it is so three-dimensional here, and you're experiencing it in non-VR over there. It is making me a little queasy.
No, yeah, it's not for the faint of heart. I invited friends and they said no. So, no. But that kind of brings us to the internal part of the eye. We have this like gooey stuff. What is the clear fluid inside of the eye?
The clear fluid inside the eye is called the vitreous humor.
Finally.
Right. So yeah, that is now correct. That clear fluid is the vitreous humor. Can we ask, why is the vitreous humor clear?
The vitreous humor is clear because it is made mostly of water and helps maintain the shape of the eyeball.
Okay, I guess it is clear because it's made mostly of water. There's also proteins in there. It does help keep the shape of the eye. That's not why it's clear, though. And I like to tell people that it's clear so that all of the different spectrum of light can pass through. Because if this was like a reddish fluid, then that would be absorbing the red light passing through, and it wouldn't be able to be interpreted by the retina there. Okay. And then...
That's a good observation. The vitreous humor is clear because it is made mostly of water and proteins, which help maintain the shape of the eye and allow light to pass
Repeating
through for
what
vision.
you said back. Yeah. By the way, this is GPT 3.5 Turbo. And it's always useful to note as a reference that if you've ever used 4, it's an order of magnitude better. So it's an interesting reference point.
Yeah, so 3.5 is more like a 6th grader.
Yeah, it can be. 4 gets up there in college power.
But so, excuse me, this part in the middle there, that's the lens. And the lens focuses the image onto the retina. So I'm going to remove the lens. And I wanted to ask our AI if they know, why does the lens continue to grow your whole life?
I think because it has to focus the light so that you can see things clearly.
Interesting. So, we know that when we're born, the lens is really, really small, and then as you age, you grow more and more layers onto the lens. And so you can get to a point where you grow too many lenses, and then you will need something called cataract surgery. And I was wondering too, are there other parts of the eye that continue to grow? Maybe. But I'll try to take some of the layers off. The lens is pretty soft. It's kind of like a soft wax. And so I can just kind of brush it gently, and there's some layers coming off. And then we might be able to see what the size of the lens was when this cow was a baby.
Yes, the lens of the eye continues to grow throughout your entire life, which can lead to the development of cataracts as you age.
True.
Tell me more.
So, okay,
The
so
lens of the eye continues to grow throughout your life.
There you go.
Layers that can eventually
Sorry.
lead to cataracts, which can cloud vision.
They're stuck.
yeah, so sometimes I wipe it on a paper towel to get some of the lens off. But it is quite smaller than it was before. And so this lens, now that it's really small,
So pretty.
is not as good at focusing light farther away. So when babies are born, they can only see like this close. And so they have to develop more and more lens layers in order to be able to see, as most people do, at a mature age.
Well, Allie, I hate to interrupt the eye situation.
Okay.
Because we have the next piece coming up.
That's right.
All of you, if you want to see the ending of this, come back. Thank you, Allie. Woo! Can I get a double amount of applause for Allie? Come on. All right.
Thank you.
Man, this is a cool place. Okay. Thank you. That was amazing. Yeah.
GPT 3.5 Turbo. Another round of applause for the
Round
cow's
by round
eye.
turbo. Doing your best. They're very inexpensive.
John, I'm going to invite
Okay.
you to sit down and maybe indulge
Okay.
a few questions.
All right.
As Sam and John mentioned, I'm Julie Yu. I'm a principal scientist here at the Exploratorium. And I, as well as probably many or all of you, have been thinking a lot about AI. And I wonder if we could start with sort of like what AI is and what it is not. And the Exploratorium's vision, I don't know if you've seen the vision statement, our vision is a world where people can think for themselves and can confidently ask questions, question answers, and understand the world around them. And when I think about those components, think for yourself, ask questions, question answers, understand the world, my sense is that AI is like progressively bad at those things. And I want to know your thoughts on it. Like, am I flawed in my thinking? Am I biased for job security? Like, how do you think the vision of the Exploratorium maps onto the current capabilities of AI?
Oh, well, I really did read your work, and I can see how devoted you are to really reshaping science education.
Thank you.
And I do think that in the 80s, some of you may have been from that era, but people used to laugh at that word, that phrase, computer science, especially if you were in science. Computer science. It's like a Schwarzenegger thing, science. I think that now in this era, it is feeling more like a science. It has the uncertainty around it, and it is truly powerful when you understand it. So, and I using 3.5 turbo is kind of important because it was the model that I was using in 2022-ish, GPT-3. And 2 years later is not like 2 years like in whatever years, dog years, or whatever you call them. So much has happened since. And I think that the Exploratorium's role in that, this era of change, probably has never been more important, because some of you remember through your relatives or indirectly, there was this World War II thing, and it was like a serious thing. And because most of the people who were part of that have either died or are really trying their best to, keep going, our connection to that terrible moment is very weak. It was a moment when things like the atom bomb, quote unquote, had to be invented to change things. And therefore science became really important, aka it could be funded, dollar. And if you look at the history of many of those scientists who I had the chance to have as professors and also colleagues at MIT, they were all very troubled with their invention in the way that a regular scientist would not usually experience in their life. I think that because the generation is gone, our connection to what technology can do when it goes wrong is quite weak. And I think the Exploratorium's history with Frank Oppenheimer is the epitome of asking questions about what happens when we humans don't understand things and get curious and get constructive, because people will get destructive quite quickly if they have an opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really glad you brought up Frank Oppenheimer, and I think because of the movie Oppenheimer, show of hands who saw it?
Saw that, yeah.
Okay, so you have some sense, and even if you didn't, maybe you have some sense of the story and the history. I think the movie, and also when you talk with folks or read biographies of people who worked on that, there were many different ways where people reconciled what they had done. And actually I can imagine in the moment, there's also the challenge of this like lovely, tantalizing thirst for this thing that can be achieved, just like the scientific achievement of it, balanced with the potential horror of it that became realized, balanced with this phrase, if someone's gonna do it, it might as well be us. And I really hear echoes of that in the conversation about AI today, right? You have people calling for guardrails and moratoriums, and the same companies led by those people are charging ahead because if someone's gonna do it, it might as well be us. So what is your recommendation for folks to maybe temper that so we don't end up in a world where this group of people charging ahead spend the rest of their lives reconciling what they've done?
I don't know. I mean, I've been thinking about how when I was at MIT, and really when you get tenure, you really don't have to work. So I'm not sure why I left that job. It's sort of irrational. All my colleagues are still there and they look very happy. But I'm happy in a different way. I got to meet someone named Happy Wang over there in my excursion out of the ivory tower, and a lot of really great people. But I remember when I was at MIT, I was confused when one of my colleagues, a very prominent scientist, same year as me, said to me, "John, You won't believe it. I said, what? I think I can get as much funding as I've ever needed. It's like a Manhattan Project. And he was like smiling and everything. I was like, is that a good sort of analogy to use for your research kind of thing? And so I kind of feel like this idea in every field exists. If I can, I will. And I think AI is just one of the many things that people can choose to want to play whatever queen, king, god over. I see the technology as really interesting. Kind of like when I was looking at the eye up close. That was neat. I did kind of want to touch it, so thank you. You made it accessible for me. Thank you, Ali. I was like, oh, I kind of want to touch that. Maybe next time. When you actually work in this AI building space, not the model building space, but the programming space, it's very exciting. It's exciting because for myself, I know that there are programs I'm writing that would have taken at least 3 years to write that I'm writing in 3 hours, which is odd. Have any of you used function calling model? Yeah, maybe there's like, I always estimate every group of people, there's roughly less than 5%, 3% have actually used function calling. It's because there's so much distraction and confusion around how to use this stuff because there's so much choice. Like the latest model, like 6 months ago, was like Red Pajama Hot Pants 17B, whatever. Like, what is that name? In reality, function calling is a very powerful paradigm regardless of model. So I recommend if you haven't tried it, it'll kind of open your eyes in a new way.
So for informed people like yourselves, in the 3 to 5% who raised their hands, you are making choices of how to engage in this technology. And I think everyone in this room has been impacted and engaged with the technology, whether we are informed about its mechanisms or not. Do you see a world where someone can choose to opt out of this?
I don't know. I mean, in the COVID vaccine era, people opted out. I think humans, we like to do things our way. So I'm sure someone will figure out how to opt out. This fear of, what is that phrase that the young people have? FOMO? I love this phrase, FOMO. It's so like real. Like, oh, I feel FOMO. That's what it's called. There is like there was Bitcoin FOMO. This is AI FOMO. But this FOMO is different because it affects how we produce knowledge. And for any person working in knowledge, it is like the advent of the calculator. A form of the calculator that calculates in meaning instead of just the numbers. And it's a good invention to touch. If you'd like to opt out, like I know people who still use an abacus. Have you ever seen people who can use an abacus really well? This is amazing. So hats off to them. So I think there'll always be classically minded people who choose that path.
I think what might feel a little different for me is thinking about non-dominant communities who have been historically impacted by technology that was imposed on them, further increasing disparities.
Yeah.
And I know you're really interested in ethical AI and thinking about inclusive AI. So what are your recommendations for folks who might be understandably resistant and maybe fearful of what's coming rather than embracing its possibilities and opportunities?
I wish I had answers, but I understand Exploratorium makes you create questions. Like I gave a talk to the staff yesterday, and when the staff members took time at the end to tell me about the amazing Batman sort of like rotoscope thing. If you haven't seen it, it is like next level. But he also kind of added on the side that he lives in Lodi, where the school system, the kids have computers that are basically Apple IIs. And so I was struck by the digital divide and how some people don't have access, even in the United States, to the internet in any formative way. And so I wonder, like, is the divide just going to get worse just when this technology could actually accelerate people? For instance, I grew up in Seattle, and I'm a product of the fortune of the desegregation movement in Seattle, where I lived in the poor part of Seattle, primarily African American, Samoan, and just poor people. And we had worse schools, worse books. But because of the desegregation laws passed, I had to get on a bus and go from the south part of Seattle to the north part of Seattle. And if that didn't happen, I would never have seen a computer. So I guess I just hope that those opportunities still keep coming to those who may not be near to those opportunities.
Yeah. So on the subject of hope, a topic of hope, I think it's a nice place to end, and asking questions as well. What question do you hope we can answer to bring a more hopeful future where we can all benefit from AI?
You know, the older you get, the more you get interested in history. The people know what I'm talking about. You're just so busy like getting stuff
you
done.
can't remember anything anymore.
And it's like, oh, wait a second, stuff happened? Whoa, there's a lot of lessons there. Maybe gotta like understand them. I would hope that more people take the time to look at history, and more people who are versed in history to do the work of help people understand what happens when you allow imbalance to occur. Because I believe that word of mouth is the only counteracting force to the power of the heavily mediated environment we're in right now. A conversation may be more powerful than another kind of, what do you call it, scroll.
Can you think of a way that AI can help us do that?
Like it could, you could use 3.5 turbo to say random things to you, and like, oh, I'm going to turn this off. Oh, I was the wrong radio station. Whatever. I do that sometimes, don't you? I degrade things once in a while to stop myself from doing it. So maybe it's a part of that. Maybe it's a human thing to. That's what vacation's for, right? Mm. You like put your phone in the freezer or whatever to stop that connection. Yeah.
It certainly provides some humor, vitreous and aqueous. On that note, I'm going to thank you, John, for joining us and sharing your brilliance with us.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for spending your time with us.
Thank you.
And enjoy the rest of your night at the Exploratorium.
Thank you.